The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the office, bathing the end-of-day workspace in a soft, amber glow. I was trying to finish up the last stack of paperwork when the office phone rang. It was Mrs. Dunning, my boss. Mrs. Jennings was a powerful, astute woman, meticulous in every detail. At 60, she possessed an innate authority. Her mere presence commanded respect, even a touch of apprehension, from everyone around her. I'd only been working here for a few months, but she was the kind of boss you both admired and remained wary of. "Jeff, could you come to my office for a moment?" Her voice was calm but firm, the kind that brooked no argument. I quickly grabbed my notebook and pen, leaving my workspace and walking down the hallway to her office. When I entered, she was seated behind her gleaming mahogany desk, gold-rimmed, reading glasses perched on her nose. She looked up at me, the setting sun streaming in from the large window behind her, creating a golden halo around her. "Close the door, please," she said, without looking up. I did as she asked, a strange flutter of anticipation in my chest. She rarely called me into her office privately, unless something significant was afoot. I had no idea what awaited me. She gestured towards the leather chair in front of her desk. "Have a seat." I sat down, my palms slightly damp. Mrs. Jennings looked up from the papers she'd been reviewing, her sharp blue eyes locking onto mine. There was something different in her gaze today. Softer, almost tender. "You've been doing excellent work lately, Jeff," she began, leaning back in her chair. "I've noticed." I exhaled softly, realizing I'd been holding my breath. "Thank you, Mrs. Jennings. I just try to do my best." She gave a faint smile, her gaze lingering on me longer than necessary. "I see that." She stood and slowly walked around her desk, coming to stand beside me. I could feel her presence, her eyes fixed on me as she moved. "You know," she started, her voice lowering slightly, "it's not often you find someone young like you with such dedication and focus." Her hand rested on the edge of the desk behind me, leaning slightly closer. Her perfume, subtle yet alluring, filled the air, making my heart beat a little faster. "Thank you, Mama," I repeated, my voice a little unsteady. I wasn't sure where this was going, but the atmosphere between us had shifted, and I couldn't ignore it. Her fingers brushed lightly against my shoulder as she continued. "But dedication isn't all it takes to get ahead, Jeff." Her hand remained on my shoulder, a touch lingering a moment longer than it should, and I felt a strange shiver run down my spine, a sensation I couldn't quite place. I swallowed, trying to keep my composure. "I understand." She leaned in a little closer, her face now inches from mine, her blue eyes intently searching mine. "Do you really?" she asked softly, her voice like velvet. Her hand slid down my arm, a caress that raised goosebumps on my skin. "There are other skills just as important, you see, knowing how to navigate certain situations." Her words hung in the air, and I could feel my pulse quickening in my throat. I didn't know what to say, but I could sense the tension between us thickening with each passing second. Mrs. Jennings moved even closer, her lips just a breath away from my ear. "You're a smart young man, Jeff. I think you know what I mean." Before I could react, her hand slipped down to my knee, the warmth of her touch seeming to penetrate the fabric of my pants. I froze, my mind racing, unsure how to respond. This was my boss, a woman I respected, admired, but the way she was touching me, the way she was looking at me, it was all too much to ignore. Her lips grazed my ear as she whispered, "I can help you go far here, Jeff, if you want." The offer hung heavy in the felt air between us, laden with unspoken implications. My breath caught in my throat as her hand continued to slide higher up my thigh, her fingers brushing a dangerous line, making my whole body tense. A whisper. Mrs. Jennings leaned back slightly, her eyes still locked on mine. There was a spark in her gaze, something that both intimidated and thrilled me. "You don't have to worry," she murmured, her hand remaining on my thigh. make things very easy for you." Her other hand rose, brushing a stray strand of hair from my forehead, then gently cupping my cheek. I felt my pulse leap as her thumb stroked softly across my skin, a touch both tender and deliberate. My body reacted instinctively, leaning slightly into her touch, despite the voice of reason in my head screaming that this was wrong. She smiled, her lip curving into a knowing, suggestive smile. "That's right, Jeff," she breathed, her hand sliding higher still on my thigh. "Just relax." Before I could fully register what was happening, she leaned in and pressed her lips to mine. The kiss was initially soft, tentative, but underneath lay a hunger that took me completely by surprise. Froze for a moment, unsure what to do, but then I found myself responding, my hands instinctively reaching around her waist. The kiss deepened, and I felt her fingers twine into my hair, pulling me closer. Every nerve in my body seemed to ignite, the electricity between us undeniable. Mrs. Jennings was no longer just my boss. In that moment, she was something else entirely. Something that made my heart race and my mind cloud. Her hands moved down to my chest, each touch sending shivers through me. I could feel the heat of her body pressed against mine, and it took all my willpower not to completely lose control. She pulled back slightly, her lips hovering just above mine as she whispered, "You're doing well, Jeff, very well." My breath was shaky, my mind reeling. "Mrs. Jennings, I don't know if this is..." "Shh," she interrupted, placing a finger against my lips. "Don't think too much. Don't think too much." She leaned in and kissed me again, her hands pulling me closer as her body molded against mine. Time seemed to stop as we were lost in that moment. All the boundaries I thought existed between us dissolved. There was no office, no professional distance, no rules. Just the two of us entwined in something I didn't fully understand, but didn't want to stop. When she finally broke the kiss, her lips were swollen, her eyes heavy with desire. "You're going to go far here, Jeff," she whispered, her voice husky with emotion. "I'll make sure of it." Sat there, breathless, my mind still trying to catch up with everything that had just happened. Mrs. Jennings straightened her blouse, regaining her usual composure as she returned to her desk. "You can go now," she said, her voice returning to her. "Now," she said, its normal calm tone, though her eyes told me this was far from over. I stood, my legs feeling a little unsteady, as I walked towards the door. As I reached for the handle, she called out, "Jeff." I turned back to face her, my heart still pounding in my chest. "Remember what we talked about," she said, a knowing smile playing on her lips. "You have potential." I nodded, my throat dry, and quickly left her office. My head swam with everything that had just transpired. I walked out of Mrs. Jennings' office, my mind still reeling, trying to process what had just happened. My heart hammered in my chest, and I could still feel the warmth of her touches on my skin. I returned to my desk, but couldn't concentrate. My thoughts kept returning to the feeling of her lips on mine, the way she looked at me with a gaze that was both commanding and hungry. In the days that followed, everything at the office felt different. Every time I passed Mrs. Jennings' office, I felt her eyes on me, discreetly, but I knew she was watching me, waiting for me to acknowledge what had transpired. I tried to avoid her as much as possible, burying myself in work, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the memory of that afternoon. A week later, she called me to her office again. My stomach clenched with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. As I walked towards her door, I knocked softly, and her voice, deeper, richer than usual, called me in. "Jeff," she said, a warm smile gracing her lips as I entered. "Come in, close the door." I obeyed, feeling that familiar, strange thrill course through me again. Mrs. Jennings was seated behind her desk, legs crossed, as composed and confident as ever. "I've been thinking about you," she said, her eyes locking onto mine. "About the potential I see in you." I nodded, my throat suddenly dry. "Thank you, Mrs. Jennings." She smiled, standing and walking towards me. There's no need for such formality with me now. Jeff, call me Laura. Her hand rested lightly on my arm, and I felt that familiar spark ignite between us. She moved closer again, too close, the tension in the air palpable, and I could feel my body responding to her presence. Despite the small voice in my head telling me to be careful, I'm serious about what I said last week, she continued, her voice gentle but firm. You have a bright future here if you know how to seize the opportunities. Her hand slid down my arm, sending shivers down my spine. She leaned in, her lips brushing against my ear as she whispered, "And I think you do." Before I could react, she kissed me again, her lips hungry, demanding. I tried to resist at first, but the pull was too strong. I found myself responding, my arms wrapping around her waist as she pressed herself against me. The fire between us flared again, and all thoughts of right and wrong blurred in that moment of raw passion. Her hands were everywhere, caressing my chest, my back, pulling me closer until there was no space left between us. She broke the kiss, breathless, her eyes filled with desire, handcuffing my cheek. You and I, we can go far together. I stood there, my mind reeling, trying to process what she was saying. I knew what she was offering, an unspoken agreement that went far beyond the boundaries of professionalism. But even as my heart raced and my body responded to her touch, a part of me knew this was a dangerous path. I need to think about it. I stammered, stepping back slightly, trying to regain some semblance of reason. Mrs. Jennings, or Laura asked. She'd asked me to call her. Smiled softly, her hand still resting on my chest. Take your time, Jeff. I'm not going anywhere. Her fingers traced a line across my chest before she stepped back, giving me some space. I believe in you, she said, her voice soft but loaded with meaning. When you're ready, you know where to find me. I nodded, swallowing hard as I turned and walked out of her office. My heart was pounding, my mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. I knew I was playing with fire, but the allure of her offer, of Laura herself, was almost irresistible. In the next few days, I kept my distance, focusing on my work, trying to clear my head. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the memory of her touches, her kisses, the promise in her words. Every time I saw her, whether in meetings or just passing her office, I felt the tension between us like a live wire waiting to spark. Then, one afternoon, she called me into her office again. This time, I knew what was coming. I could feel it in the air as I walked down the hallway, my heart pounding in my chest. When I entered, she was standing by the window, her back to me. She turned as she heard me enter, a slow smile spreading across her lips. Jeff, she said softly, her eyes locking onto mine. I've been waiting for you. I didn't say anything, but I could feel the pull between us stronger than ever. She walked towards me, each step slow and deliberate, until she walked towards me, until she stood right in front of me, her hands resting lightly on my chest. You've been thinking about what I said, haven't you? She whispered, her lips just inches from mine. I nodded, unable to speak. She smiled, her hand sliding down my arm, her touch sending shivers through me. Good, she breathed, leaning in to kiss me again, sealing the unspoken agreement between us. From that moment on, everything changed. Laura and I became something more than just boss and employee, something that existed in the quiet corners of the office, behind closed doors, in stolen moments, where the lines between professional and personal blurred. It was exhilarating, dangerous, and utterly captivating. But deep down, I knew this was a game that couldn't last forever. The question was, how far would it go before it all came crashing down? The following days passed in a state of delicious tension. Every day coming into the office was an internal battle for me. On one hand, I tried to bury myself in work, act professionally, and avoid Laura. On the other, I couldn't stop thinking about her, about the kiss, about her tempting offer. Memories of her touch, her hungry gaze, haunted my mind, making me both confused and strangely thrilled. I started to notice Laura more. Before, she'd just been a powerful and respected boss in my eyes, but now I realized she was breathtakingly attractive. Every time she appeared, whether just walking down the hallway or entering a meeting room, I could feel a powerful energy emanating from her. Her outfits were always perfect, from the tailored business suits that emphasized her commanding figure to the pencil skirts that hugged her curves. Her chestnut hair was usually pulled back in a neat bun, but a few loose strands always framed her face, giving her a look that was both elegant and free-spirited. Her sharp blue eyes always shone with intelligence and authority, but sometimes, in those eyes, a hint of softness appeared, almost tenderness, whenever she looked at me. I began to notice small changes around the office. My colleagues seemed to sense the shift between Laura and me too. The probing glances, the knowing smiles, the veiled comments, all of it made me uneasy and worried. I knew this relationship was a double-edged sword, capable of taking me to the heights of success, but also just as easily throwing me into a dark abyss. One afternoon, when I was working late in the office, the phone rang. It was Laura. "Jeff, could you come up to my office for a moment?" Her voice was still calm and resolute as always, but I detected a hint of warmth hidden beneath. My heart skipped a beat. I knew this moment was finally here. I took a deep breath, tried to steady myself, then stood and left the room. Hallway was eerily silent. The cold white fluorescent lights amplified the stillness of the space. I walked along the thick carpeted hallway, my footsteps almost silent. The closer I got to Laura's office, the faster my heart pounded. Feel a powerful urge from within. A mixture of curiosity, desire, and a hint of fear. When I reached Laura's office door, it was ajar. Knocked softly, then gently pushed the door open and stepped inside. Laura's office was lit by the soft glow of a desk lamp, creating a warm and private space. She was standing by the window, gazing at the city skyline at night. Streetlights reflected off her face, highlighting her delicate and alluring features. She wore a dark crimson silk dress, clinging to her form, revealing her seductive curves. The dress seemed demure at first glance, but the soft silk and vibrant color evoked a sense of passion and mystery. Hearing the sound, Laura turned. Smile blossomed on her lips. "Jeff, you're here." Her voice was softer than ever, almost sweet. The word she used made my heart jump. She had never called me that before. It was intimate, suggestive, and confirmed a change in our relationship. "Have a seat?" She gestured towards the white leather sofa set in the corner of the room. I walked over and sat down, the tension in my body still not easing. Laura slowly walked towards me, her walk graceful and confident. She sat down in the chair opposite me, the distance between us close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from her body. "You seem to be avoiding me lately," Laura said, her voice laced with teasing. I was slightly startled, not expecting her to directly address the issue. Nah, not at all. "I've just been busy with work." I tried to keep my voice steady, but I knew it still trembled slightly. Laura chuckled softly, her smile today seeming different, lacking its usual authority and sharpness, replaced by an irresistible allure. "An invitation? Really? Or are you afraid of me?" "Afraid? Afraid of you," I repeated, feeling a little embarrassed. "Call me Laura," she reiterated, her eyes fixed on mine, unwavering. Perhaps you are afraid? Afraid of what might happen between us?" I was silent, unsure how to answer. It was true. I was true. Afraid. Afraid of losing my career. Afraid of being discovered. Afraid of unforeseen consequences. But deep down, I also longed for it. Longed to explore the mysteries in Laura. Longed to experience new sensations. longed to advance further in this relationship. Laura raised her hand and gently stroked my cheek, the light touch causing my heart to tremble powerfully. "No need to be afraid. I won't hurt you." Her voice was as gentle as honey poured into my ear. "I just want you help me." "Nah," I asked again, my voice still stammering. "Help you achieve what you want," Laura said, her eyes becoming deep and meaningful. "You're a man with potential, Jeff, so much potential. You could go even further if you know how to seize the opportunities." She mentioned opportunities again. I understood that the opportunities she spoke of were not limited to work. They included other things I vaguely sensed but hadn't dared to name. I was still hesitant. Laura sighed softly, stood, and walked to the window, her back to me. Her figure looked slender and alluring in the dark crimson silk dress, the nightlights highlighting her seductive curves. "Perhaps I was wrong," she said, her voice tinged with sadness. "Perhaps you're not interested in what I have to offer." Hearing her voice sound disappointed, I felt a twinge of regret and anxiety. I didn't want her to think I was rejecting her. I just needed more time to think, to prepare myself for what might happen. "No, it's not like that," I said quickly. I just need time." Laura turned back, her eyes lighting up with a glimmer of hope. "Time? How much time do you need?" I was silent for a moment, then answered, "I don't know, my bae. A few more days." Laura smiled softly, her smile today seeming lighter. "All right, I'll give you time, but don't keep me waiting too long." She walked closer to me, the distance between us shrinking again. "I'm very patient, Jeff, but even my patience has its limits." Her eyes met mine again, and once more, I felt a strong urge from her, a silent invitation, haunting me. I knew I was standing at a crucial crossroads in my life. My choice would decide my future, and I, deep down, already knew which path I wanted to choose. Laura reached out, gently taking my hand. Her hand was warm and soft, transmitting a strange sense of security and trust. "Have dinner with me," she suggested softly. "We can talk more comfortably somewhere else." I looked into her deep blue eyes, unable to resist her allure. "Yes," I answered, my voice almost a whisper. Laura's smile was brighter than ever. She stood, pulling me up with her. "Then, let's go." She squeezed my hand, leading me out of the office. Stepping out of the cold and austere office building, I felt a new breeze enter my life. I knew that from this moment on, everything would change. Relationship between Laura and me had crossed the professional boundary, stepping into a completely new realm, a realm full of promise, but also fraught with potential dangers. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I didn't want to turn back. I wanted to explore. I wanted to experience. I wanted to go to the very end of the path Laura had opened before me. When the taxi pulled up in front of a luxurious restaurant tucked away on a quiet street, I realized that the game had only just begun. Chapter 3. The Fateful Dinner. The taxi stopped in front of a restaurant called the Gilded Lily. From the outside, the restaurant exuded discreet luxury, with warm golden light spilling from large windows. Laura stepped out of the car, her silhouette in the dark crimson silk dress blending into the night. She gently extended her hand, and I took it, feeling the softness of her skin and the warmth of her hand pass into mine. Stepping inside, I felt transported to another world. The restaurant's interior was designed in a classic European style, with dark wood-paneled walls, elaborate crystal chandeliers, and large oil paintings hanging on the walls. Soft golden light created a cozy and romantic atmosphere. The faint sound of jazz music drifted through the air, further enhancing the place's luxurious and seductive charm. The restaurant manager, a suave man in a black suit, approached to greet Laura with a warm smile. "Good evening, Mrs. Jennings. It's a pleasure to welcome you." "Good evening, Thomas," Laura replied. her voice still holding its composed authority. But her eyes softened as she glanced at me. "This is Jeff, my associate." "My associate." The manager politely shook my hand, then led us to a secluded table tucked away in a corner by a large window overlooking a small garden outside. The table was set with crisp white linen, a vase of fresh flowers, and 2 glasses of shimmering red wine. As the waiter pulled out Laura's chair, I noticed how her silk dress looked even more alluring in the golden light. The soft material clung to her body, hinting at her seductive curves. With every movement, the dress shimmered slightly, creating soft, captivating folds. "Do you like the restaurant?" "The well, no, da what?" Laura asked, after the waiter had poured the wine and left. "It's beautiful," I answered, my eyes still fixed on her. "I've never been to such a luxurious place." Laura gave a faint smile. "Don't be so formal, just relax." She raised her wine glass, gently clinking it against mine. "To our new beginning." I clinked glasses with her, taking a sip of red wine. The wine, slightly dry and fragrant, spread warmly through my mouth, making my body feel hotter. "So," Laura began, after we'd both taken a sip of wine, "have you thought carefully about my offer?" I put down my glass, looking directly into her eyes. "Yes," I said, my voice more resolute than before. I agree." Laura's eyes lit up with satisfaction. She nodded slightly, a mysterious smile playing on her lips. "Disappoint me," she said, her voice loaded with meaning. Dinner began in an atmosphere that was both formal and intimate. We talked about work, about personal interests, about childhood memories. Laura told me about her time studying and working in Europe, about her travels to far-flung lands. Her voice was deep and captivating, her storytelling graceful and intelligent. The more I listened, the more I was drawn into her world, a world full of color and experience. Throughout dinner, Laura's attention remained focused on me. She listened intently as I spoke, asked probing questions, and encouraged me to share my thoughts and feelings. Occasionally, she lightly touched my hand or looked at me with a tender gaze, making my heart flutter. Dessert was served, a small chocolate cake, intricately decorated. Laura took a bite, raising it to her lips in a slow, sensual motion. Her eyes never left mine. "You know, Jeff," she said, her voice husky, almost a whisper, "you have a very special allure." I was a little embarrassed, unsure how to respond. I don't know about that." Laura smiled softly, placing her fork down, reaching across the table to take my hand. "Don't be so humble. You have a hidden beauty, a discreet charm, and I find that very appealing." Her hand tightened around mine, the warmth from her hand spreading through me, making my heart race. I looked deep into her blue eyes, sensing a fire smoldering within them. "Laura," I whispered her name, my voice trembling. Laura gently pulled my hand, drawing me up from my chair. "Come with me," she said, her voice an invitation. I followed her out of the restaurant. Outside, night had of the restaurant fallen, streetlights twinkling like stars in the sky. Laura led me down a quiet street, the cool evening air sending a shiver down my spine. Reaching a small, secluded park, Laura stopped. She turned to face me, the distance between us only a few steps. Moonlight cast a silvery glow on her face, highlighting her alluring and mysterious beauty. "Jeff," she said softly, "I want to kiss you." Her words were a statement, not a question. I said nothing, only looked into her eyes, waiting. Laura slowly moved closer, each step seeming to shorten the space between us, while also increasing the tension and anticipation in my chest. When she stood right in front of me, she raised her hand, gently caressing my cheek. Her soft fingers brushed lightly against my skin, sending shivers through me. "Do you want to?" she asked again, her voice a whisper, her lips just inches from mine. "Yes," I answered, my voice almost inaudible. Without waiting any longer, Laura leaned in and pressed her lips to mine, The kiss was initially gentle, hesitant, like a beginning. But then, as I responded, her kiss deepened, becoming more passionate, more fervent. Her lips were soft and warm, the taste of red wine still lingering on them. I closed my eyes, completely lost in this sweet and intoxicating kiss. Laura's arms wrapped around my neck, pulling me closer, her body pressing against mine. I could feel the heat from her body, her seductive perfume, and the quickening beat of her heart. My own hands instinctively wrapped around her waist, holding her tight, as if afraid she would vanish. The kiss stretched on endlessly, time seeming to stop. In that moment, I forgot everything around me. There was only Laura and me, only the burning, passionate kiss. I felt myself melting into her embrace, all boundaries, all rules, all worries dissolving. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, Laura rested her forehead against mine, her eyes closed. I could feel her hot breath on my face. "Jeff," she whispered my name, her voice hoarse with emotion. "Laura," I replied, my voice trembling. Without another word, we kissed again, this time even more passionate and fervent than before. Tonight, under the silvery moonlight and in Laura's arms, I had officially stepped into a new world, a world of passion, of secrets, and of the unpredictable. The question was, how far would it go before it all came crashing down? The yellow New York taxi pulled up smoothly in front of the Gilded Lily. From the outside, the restaurant was unassuming, hinting at its luxurious interior only through the warm honeyed glow spilling from the frosted glass windows. As Laura stepped out, her dark crimson silk dress was like a smoldering ember in the quiet night. I hurried to open the car door for her, and when my hand brushed hers as I helped her out, a faint electric current shot up my spine. She delicately offered her hand, an invitation subtly sensual. And as I took it, the feeling of her soft, warm skin seemed to flood my entire being. Stepping through the heavy oak doors, I felt like I was entering a different world entirely, escaping the city's noise and bustle outside. The Gilded Lily was like a hidden gem, an oasis of luxury and discretion. The interior was bathed in soft, warm, golden light from elaborate crystal chandeliers suspended from the high ceiling and flickering candlelight on each table. Dark mahogany panels lined the walls, punctuated by classic oil paintings in ornate gold frames. The subtle scent of roses and sandalwood mingled with the alluring aroma of food, creating an atmosphere that was luxurious, cozy, and undeniably sensual. Soft jazz music, smooth as silk, played quietly, enveloping the space in a gentle sonic embrace. Thomas, the restaurant manager, a distinguished middle-aged man in a crisp black suit and radiant smile, quickly approached to greet Laura. "Good evening, Mrs. Jennings. A great honor to welcome you." His deep, courteous voice rang out, mixed with respect and admiration. "Good evening, Thomas," Laura replied, her voice still retaining its usual composure and authority. But as her eyes shifted to me, a hint of tenderness, almost intimacy, flashed in their deep blue depths. "This is Jeff, my close associate." The manager politely shook my hand, a quick, firm handshake, accompanied by a formal smile. "Welcome, Jeff. I trust you will have a pleasant evening at the Gilded Lily." Then, he signaled to a young waiter who promptly led us to our table. Our table was ideally located, tucked away in a secluded corner, nestled beside a large window, overlooking the small, charming garden behind the restaurant. Silver moonlight filtered through the lush greenery, illuminating blooming roses, creating a romantic and poetic scene. The table was set with crisp white linen, a vase of pristine white orchids emitting a delicate fragrance, and two sparkling crystal glasses filled with ruby red wine. As the waiter pulled out Laura's chair, I couldn't take my eyes off her. revealing her slender shoulders, tiny waist, and long, endless legs. The soft, silky material shimmered like water, gently swaying with her every move, sparkling in the golden light, creating an incredibly seductive visual effect. With each gesture, the dress seemed to whisper secrets, evoking hidden desires. "How do you like the restaurant?" Laura asked, her voice soft, when the waiter had filled our glasses and discreetly left, granting us privacy. "It's wonderful, Laura," I replied, honestly from the bottom of my heart, my eyes still unable to leave her beautiful face. "Beautiful. I've never been to a place this magnificent." My words were perhaps a bit clumsy, but it was all I could articulate my feelings at that moment. I felt like a country bumpkin lost in a royal palace. Laura chuckled softly, a gentle, warm smile melting away all the tension within me. "Don't be so formal. Just relax. Be yourself." She picked up her wine glass, her slender fingers, nails painted ruby red, wrapped around the crystal stem. She gently raised her glass, lightly clinking it against mine, creating a soft, clear chime. "To a new beginning for us." Her eyes gazed deeply into mine, a gaze full of meaning and promise. I clinked glasses with her, a formal and meaningful ritual, as I sipped the red wine. The warm, smooth liquid flowed down my throat, the subtly dry taste, mixed with a hint of sweetness, the rich aroma of ripe fruit, spreading throughout my mouth, warming my body from within. The wine glass in my hand felt like a promise, a sign of a major change about to unfold in my life. "So," Laura began the conversation, after we'd both had a bit of wine, the atmosphere becoming more relaxed and open. "Have you really thought carefully at my offer?" Her voice was no longer the usual serious tone, but softer and more alluring, like a tempting invitation. I set my wine glass on the table, the sound of glass gently touching the tabletop in the quiet space sounding distinctly audible. I took a deep breath, mustered all my courage, looking directly into her deep blue eyes. "Yes," I said, my voice ringing out firmer and more certain than the tremor in my heart. I agree." A moment of silence enveloped the space, eyes lit up, shining with satisfaction and triumph. She nodded slightly, a mysterious, contented smile blooming on her red lips. "I knew it. I knew you wouldn't disappoint me." Her voice was low, husky, like a firm affirmation, but also hiding a mesmerizing promise. The formal dinner officially began in an atmosphere that was both formal and courteous, yet intimate and close. The waiter brought out dishes presented as exquisitely as works of art. We savored the fragrant lobster bisque soup, the pan-seared salmon melting in my mouth, and the premium Wagyu beef steak, each dish a symphony of flavors and colors. The excellent red wine was refilled in our glasses whenever they were low, making the atmosphere even more intoxicating and romantic. Throughout the meal, we chatted about everything from daily office work to personal hobbies, childhood memories, and future ambitions. Laura told me about her time studying and working in Paris and London, about her travels to faraway lands like Morocco and Kyoto. Her voice was deep, captivating, her way of speaking extremely graceful, intelligent, and witty. The more I listened, the more drawn I was into her rich and mysterious inner world, a world I had never had the opportunity to explore before. I also shared with her about my life, about the difficulties and challenges I had overcome, about the aspirations and ambitions I had always cherished in my heart. Laura listened intently, never listened intently, interrupting, her eyes always following me with deep concern and empathy. Occasionally, she would smile faintly, nod, or place her hand on mine, small gestures yet containing a strange power, making me feel understood, valued, and loved. I felt myself gradually opening up to her, shedding the layers of defensiveness I had built up for so long. When dessert was served, a small, hot, exquisite chocolate fondant cake, with a core of melting sweet chocolate decorated with fresh, ripe baked strawberries and cool green mint leaves. Laura picked up a small silver fork, took a small bite of cake, bringing it to her lips in a slow, deliberate motion, as if savoring every moment, every flavor, appreciative and challenging. "You know, Jeff," she began, her voice husky, deep, almost a whisper, breaking the sweet silence between us. "You have an allure, very special." Her unexpected compliment made me slightly embarrassed. My face flushing hot, I looked down, avoiding her direct gaze, trying to hide my embarrassment. I don't know," I stammered, feeling clumsy and foolish. Laura softly chuckled, a gentle, tender smile, not at all mocking. She placed her fork on the table, reached across the table, taking my hand in hers. Her hand was small but warm, her slender, soft fingers gently stroking the back of my hand, creating a pleasant and strangely stimulating sensation. "Don't be so humble, Jeff. You have a hidden beauty, a discreet charm, an inner strength that not everyone can recognize. And I," her voice lowered, becoming quieter, like a deep-seated secret, "find it very appealing." Her hand tightened around mine, the warmth from her hand radiating through me, spreading throughout my body, making my heart pound rapidly in my chest. I looked up at her, my eyes lost in her deep blue eyes, sensing a smoldering, passionate fire burning intensely within them. I knew that the boundary between us had completely dissolved, no distance remaining. "Laura," I whispered her name softly, my voice trembling, choked up like a plea, an invitation. Laura gently pulled my hand, drawing me up from the plush chair. "Come with me," she said, her voice inviting, her eyes hypnotic. Without a moment's hesitation, I obediently followed her out of the luxurious restaurant. Outside, night had completely fallen, engulfing the city in a mysterious black velvet cloak. Streetlights reflected on the wet road surface after a drizzle. In the afternoon, twinkling like fallen stars on the ground. Laura squeezed my hand tightly, leading me to walk along the quiet, deserted street, leaving behind the noise and bustle of the city center. The cool October evening air sent a slight shiver down my spine, but the warmth from Laura's hand seemed to dispel all the cold. Arriving at a small, secluded park, nestled between tall buildings, Laura suddenly stopped. She turned back, facing me, the distance between us only a breath away. Silvery moonlight gently shone on her face, highlighting her delicate, elegant features and her seductive, mysterious beauty. In the ethereal moonlight, Laura was more beautiful than ever, breathtakingly beautiful, voice soft, like a whisper from the depths of her heart. "I want to kiss you." Her words were not a question, but a firm declaration, a sweet command. My heart seemed to stop beating for a moment. I was silent, saying nothing, only knowing to look deeply into her blue eyes now lit with desire, waiting for something to happen. Laura slowly moved closer to me, her slow, graceful steps seeming to shorten the distance between us, while also increasing the tension, excitement, and breathless anticipation in my heart. When she stood right in front of me, her body almost touching mine, she raised her hand, gently cradling my face in her soft palm. Her slender, warm fingers lightly stroked my skin, from my forehead down my cheek to my chin, each touch sending shivers through me, a feeling both pleasant and stimulating, both thrilling and unsettling. "Do you want to?" she asked again, her voice a whisper, her hot breath on my face, her lips only inches from mine, like a final invitation. "Yes," I answered, my voice hoarse, almost inaudible, but it was all my heart wanted to say. Without any further hesitation or doubt, Laura leaned in, taking the initiative to place her soft, sweet lips on mine. The kiss was initially light, hesitant, tentative, like a slow beginning, but full of promise. But then, as I responded, her kiss deepened, becoming more passionate, more fervent. like a flame bursting forth after a long smolder. Her lips were soft, sweet as honey, warm as fire. The taste of red wine still faintly lingering on her lips, blending with her warm breath, creating an addictive mixture, making me completely lose control. I closed my eyes, surrendering to the flow of emotion, completely immersed in this sweet, intoxicating, and sinful kiss. Laura's arms wrapped around my neck, tightening, pulling me even closer, her body pressed against mine, leaving no gap between us. I could feel the hot warmth from her body, her seductive, rich perfume, and her heart beating fast and strong, in sync with mine. My own hands instinctively wrapped around her waist, holding her tight, as if afraid she would vanish, afraid this wonderful moment would slip away. The kiss stretched on endlessly. Time seemed to stop, all surrounding sounds disappeared. Only Laura and I remained, only the burning, passionate kiss, only the synchronized heartbeats and intertwined breaths. I felt myself melting into her embrace, all boundaries, all rules, all worries, all fears, all guilt, all dissolving, leaving only pleasure and raw passion. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, Laura rested her forehead against mine, her eyes closed, her long, curved eyelashes trembling slightly. I could feel her hot breath on my face, her skin soft, smooth as silk. She whispered my name softly, her voice hoarse with emotion, mixed with a tremor. "Laura," I replied, my voice choked up, trembling, unable to fully express the chaotic emotions surging within me, without needing to say anything more. Without any promises or commitments, we kissed again, this time even more passionate, more fervent, more urgent than before, as if both fearing this moment would slip away. Tonight, under the ethereal, silvery moonlight, in the quiet space of the deserted park, and in Laura's warm, seductive embrace, I had officially stepped into a new world, a world of passion and secrets, of complex relationships and unpredictable things. I did not know what the future held, what path lay ahead, but I knew for sure I did not want to turn back. I wanted to explore. To experience. I wanted to go to the very end of the path Laura had opened before me, even if that path might be full of dangers and pitfalls. As the luxurious taxi rolled away from the restaurant, carrying Laura and me into the deep night of the fate city, I knew that this dangerous game, this fateful dinner, was only the beginning of a chain of unforeseen events. After the endless kiss in the park, we stood there for a long moment, silently savoring the afterglow of the experience. Breaths were still ragged, chests heaving. Silvery moonlight softly enveloped the space around us, witnessing a secret just forming between us. Laura finally looked up at me, her blue eyes still shining with desire and passion, to gently stroke my cheek, a gesture tender and affectionate. "Come back to my place with me," she suggested, her voice soft, almost a whisper. My heart skipped a beat at her suggestion. I knew this invitation carried a meaning far beyond a simple date. It was an invitation to step into her private world, a confirmation that our relationship had taken a significant step forward. "Yes," I answered, my voice without hesitation. Laura smiled, her smile today truly radiant and happy. She tightened her grip on my hand, leading me out of the park, back to the street where the taxi still waited. During the taxi ride to Laura's place, neither of us spoke a word, but the silence between us was not awkward or uncomfortable. On the contrary, it was filled with anticipation and longing. I could feel the sweet tension and longing in the air, the gentle vibration from Laura's hand tightly holding mine. When the taxi stopped in front of a luxurious apartment building located in a quiet and upscale neighborhood, I knew we had arrived. From the outside, the building exuded modern and sophisticated charm, with minimalist architecture and sharp lines, warm golden light spill from the elegant lobby, creating a space both private and upscale. Laura led me into the lobby, decorated with modern art pieces and plush, cream-colored leather sofas. The courteous receptionist greeted Laura with a respectful smile, then discreetly withdrew, leaving us privacy. We stepped into the elevator, the narrow and enclosed space of the elevator car further enhancing the closeness and intimacy between us. Laura stood close beside me, her warm breath on my neck, her seductive perfume permeating the air, making my heart pound. When the elevator stopped at the top floor, the doors opened to reveal a wide and luxurious hallway, carpeted in thick charcoal gray, abstract paintings adorning the walls on either side. Laura led me down the hallway, stopping at a large, dark brown wooden door. She took a key from her small leather purse, unlocked the door, and invited me to step inside. Laura's apartment was spacious and luxurious, designed in a modern, minimalist style, with a color palette dominated by white, beige, and light gray. Natural light flooded the space through large glass windows, overlooking panoramic city views at night. The living room was tastefully furnished with a soft cream-colored leather sofa, a sleek glass coffee table, and a large flat-screen TV mounted on the wall. On a large walnut bookshelf, art books and a large walnut bookshelf. Minimalist, yet stylish, decorative items were displayed. The living room flowed seamlessly into the dining room and kitchen, creating a spacious and airy open-plan area. The modern kitchen was fully equipped with high-end stainless steel appliances. A natural wood dining table sat in the center of the dining area, set with pristine white china and sparkling crystal glasses. The lighting in the apartment was adjusted to a soft glow, creating a warm and romantic atmosphere. The subtle scent of lilies and scented candles permeated the space, creating a feeling of relaxation and comfort. Laura's apartment clearly reflected her refined and upscale taste, while also revealing something of her personality, powerful, independent, yet feminine and seductive. "Welcome to my home," Laura said softly. Closing the door behind us, she turned to face me, her eyes meeting mine, shining with expectation and invitation. I looked around the apartment, feeling overwhelmed by the beauty and luxury of the place. "Your apartment, Laura's apartment." "It's beautiful," I stammered, still unaccustomed to calling her by her first name. Laura smiled faintly, her smile today gentle and warm, lacking her usual authority and sharpness. "Make yourself at home," she said, then removed the black cashmere coat she was wearing, revealing the dark crimson silk dress clinging to her body. The simple gesture of taking off her coat, though seemingly mundane, carried a sensual and inviting implication that was hard to resist. I couldn't tear my eyes away from her, from the alluring curves of her body, hinted at under the soft silk, to her ardent and meaningful gaze. "Care for a drink?" Laura suggested, her voice soft. "Red wine or a cocktail?" "Red wine would be lovely," I replied, my voice a little hoarse. "Excellent." Laura smiled, walking towards the mini-bar set in the corner of the living room. She took out a bottle of fine red wine and 2 crystal glasses, then poured the wine with practiced elegance. While Laura prepared drinks, I took the opportunity to observe her apartment more closely. I noticed that although the apartment was decorated luxuriously and expensively, it still felt warm and soulful, not cold and soulful, distant. On a walnut desk, a small photo frame sat, showing Laura in her youth, with long hair and a radiant smile. Abstract paintings, likely painted by herself, adorned the walls. These small details revealed another Laura, a woman deep, emotional, and with an artistic soul. Laura brought the wine over, handing me a glass, then sat down on the plush leather sofa opposite me. She raised her glass, lightly clinking it against mine. Tonight, she whispered, her eyes meeting mine, shining with expectation and desire. I clinked glasses with her, sipping the red wine, The subtle, dry, warm taste spread through my body, dispelling all tension and worry in my heart. Red wine and gazing at the nighttime cityscape. The atmosphere became more relaxed and intimate than ever. Laura told me about her memories from her youth, about the difficulties and successes in her career, about her personal passions and hobbies. I listened intently, feeling myself becoming more and more drawn into her world. Occasionally, our eyes would meet, gazes filled with understanding, empathy, and hidden longing. Our hands accidentally brushed on the couch, the light touches sending shivers through both of us. When the second glass of wine was half empty, Laura suddenly stood up. She walked over to me, reaching out her hand, pulling me up with her. "Come with me," she said, her voice husky, inviting. I didn't ask where she was leading me, nor did I hesitate. Obediently following her, Laura led me into the bedroom, a spacious and luxurious room, decorated in a minimalist style, but still exuding warmth and seduction. The king-size bed was draped with soft white silk sheets, the room lit by flickering scented candles, creating a magical and romantic space. Laura closed the bedroom door, then turned to face me. She moved closer to me, each step slow and deliberate, until she stood right in front of me, her body almost touching mine. Her eyes met mine, a passionate and longing gaze, as if wanting to consume me. "Jeff," she whispered my name softly, her lips just inches from mine. "Tonight, you are mine." Her words were a declaration, an affirmation of ownership, sending a shiver of excitement through my entire body. I couldn't speak, only nod, completely surrendering to her allure and passion. Without waiting any longer, Laura leaned in and placed her lips on us, mine. This kiss was no longer gentle and tentative like the one in the park, but became fervent and possessive, as if she wanted to assert her ownership of me. I returned her kiss with equal fervor, my hands tightly embracing her waist, pulling her closer, my body pressing against hers, leaving no space between us. The kiss stretched on endlessly. Time seemed to stop, all surrounding sound disappeared, leaving only the two of us intertwined in a symphony of passion and longing. Tonight, in Laura's luxurious and private apartment, under the shimmering candlelight and in the arms of this powerful and seductive woman, I had completely surrendered, stepping into a secret and dangerous love affair, a fateful night I would never forget. That night, Jeff and Laura stayed together, leaving behind all boundaries, all rules, all worries, leaving only two hearts beating in unison in the tempting darkness. Waking up the next morning in Laura's apartment felt surreal. Sunlight peeked through the window, illuminating the luxurious bedroom where traces of the previous night still lingered on the silk sheets. Next to me, Laura was still asleep, her chestnut hair spread across the pillow, her elegant face looking peaceful and soft. In sleep, I quietly observed her, trying to memorize every detail of this powerful and mysterious woman's face. Just months ago, Laura Jennings had been a distant, respected boss, an icon of power and success admired from afar. But now, after last night, she had become an integral part of my life, a passionate and fervent lover who had opened a whole new world to me, a world of secrets and intense emotions. Careful not to wake Laura, I gently got out of bed and headed to the bathroom to shower and prepare for a new workday. When I emerged from the bathroom, Laura was awake and sitting up in bed, draped in a thin silk robe, revealing her seductive bare shoulders and long, pale legs. "Good morning," she said, her voice husky, her eyes meeting mine with a knowing smile. "Good morning, Laura," I replied, my heart skipping a beat as I called her name so naturally. "Sleep well?" she asked softly. "Wonderfully," I answered honestly. And it was the truth. I had had the best sleep in months, not just because of the plush bed, but because of the sense of peace and contentment being beside Laura. Laura smiled and gestured for me to come closer. I walked over and sat on the edge of the bed, and she reached out to gently stroke my cheek, a tender and affectionate gesture. "Do you have any schedule today?" she asked, her voice caressing. "No, just a few morning meetings," I replied. "Then have breakfast with me," she suggested, her voice inviting. "Yes, I'd love to," I answered without hesitation. We had breakfast together in Laura's elegant dining room, a light but nutritious meal of toast, eggs, sunny side up, fresh fruit, and hot coffee. Throughout the meal, we chatted about the day's plans, office work, and future prospects. The atmosphere between us was filled with sweetness and romance, but also an underlying tension and apprehension. We both knew our relationship was a dangerous secret, and we had to be careful to keep it hidden, especially in the office. At the office today, we must behave as usual, Laura reminded me as we prepared to leave the apartment. No lingering looks, no intimate gestures. We are still boss and employee. Understand? I understand. I nodded, though a little disappointed. I knew she was right. We couldn't expose our secret to anyone, especially at the office, where prying eyes and gossip were rife. But after work hours, Laura continued, lowering her voice, her eyes looking at me meaningfully. "We can be whoever we want to be." A mysterious smile played on her lips, and I knew we would have another long night together. The thought made my heart race, a feeling both eager, guilty, and thrilling. Entering the office, I tried to act normal, professional, and avoid Laura as much as possible. But it was difficult when my mind was still filled with images and memories of last night, and when Laura's eyes seemed to follow me everywhere in the office. Every time I passed Laura's office, I felt a jolt run through me. I knew she was inside, behind the closed door, and I knew she was thinking of me too. Remembering our intimate moments, sometimes I would catch her eyes glancing at me during meetings, fleeting glances, yet containing a secret message, a promise of clandestine encounters to come. Colleagues began to notice the shift in the relationship between Laura and me. The probing glances, the veiled glances, questions, the knowing smiles, all of it made me uneasy and anxious. I knew our secret couldn't stay hidden forever. Sooner or later, it would be exposed. But I couldn't stop myself. I was too enamored with this relationship. I didn't want to lose Laura, and I didn't want to give up the career prospects she had promised. Our secret rendezvous became more frequent, not just at Laura's apartment, but also in luxurious hotels, discreet restaurants, or even right in the office. Late after hours, when everyone else had left, we tried every means to conceal our relationship, but at the same time, couldn't resist the urge to be close and intimate with each other. In the office, we remained boss and employee, maintaining professional distance and proper decorum. But behind the closed door of Laura's office, or during secret evening dates, we became passionate and fervent lovers, exchanging burning kisses, tender caresses, and sweet nights of intimacy. Relationship brought both excitement and fulfillment, but also made me feel tense and worried. I knew I was playing a dangerous game, and I could pay a heavy price if discovered. But I couldn't resist Laura's allure, nor did I want to lose what I had accepted the risk, and I would go to the end of the path I had chosen, no matter where it might lead. One afternoon, Laura called me to her office, not through the office phone, but via text message on my personal cell. A short message, but full of innuendo. 5 p.m., my office, don't forget. My heart beat faster reading her text. I knew this meeting wasn't just about work. It was an invitation to another secret encounter, a stolen moment amidst the tense workday. Right at 5 p.m., as everyone was starting to leave, I slipped quietly towards Laura's office. The hallway was deserted and dim, with only the faint fluorescent light from empty offices. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, a feeling both thrilling, anxious, and exciting. Reaching Laura's office door, I knocked gently, using our agreed-upon code. Knock, 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 knock. The door opened almost immediately. Laura, standing there, greeting me with a mysterious smile, wore a tight-fitting black business dress, accentuating her seductive figure, yet also exuding an air of seriousness and professionalism. But her eyes gleamed with a spark of passion, a wordless invitation I couldn't resist. Softly, her voice inviting, then stepped back to let me enter. I walked into the office, Laura quickly closing and locking the door. Inside, a desk lamp was softly lit, creating a warm and private space, completely separated from the outside world. Laura's familiar perfume filled the air, mingling with the scent of paper and ink, creating a distinctive office aroma. But today, it felt more sensual and stimulating than ever. Laura approached me, each step slow and graceful, stopped before me, reaching out to gently adjust my shirt collar. Her eyes meeting mine, a gaze both challenging and inviting. "Do you know why I called you here today?" she asked, her voice a whisper, her lips just inches from mine. I shook my head, feigning innocence, though deep down I sensed her intentions. Laura chuckled softly, her smile today playful and meaningful. She leaned in, placing her lips on meaningful mine. A light kiss, but enough to awaken every sense in me. "Because I missed you," she whispered in my ear as the kiss ended. "And because I want you," her words were a declaration, an affirmation of ownership, sending a shiver of excitement through my entire body. I couldn't speak, only return her kiss with fervor and passion, completely forgetting we were in the office, that someone might unexpectedly walk in, that we were risking everything for a stolen moment. Formal and austere office, amidst piles of documents and dry office equipment, we had created our own secret world, a world of passion and desire, a dangerous but tempting office secret. And I knew that no matter what the future held, these stolen moments would forever be an inseparable part of my secret and dangerous love affair with Laura. As the days of stolen office moments turned into weeks, my initial excitement gradually morphed into a gnawing sense of unease. We were playing a dangerous game, I knew, and the thrill was now mixed with a heavy dose of anxiety. It felt like we were walking a tightrope high above ground, one wrong step away from a devastating fall. Every morning as I walked into the office, our secret pressed down on me. The casual glances from colleagues, the veiled questions, the knowing smirks exchanged in hushed tones. They all felt like invisible barbs aimed at our carefully constructed facade. Companion, I was always on edge, watching my words, my actions, terrified that our secret was about to unravel. One morning, while making copies in the communal area, I overheard snippets of a conversation from the adjacent office. The voices of Sarah and Emily, two of my colleagues. "Have you noticed anything different about Jeff and Mrs. Jennings lately?" Sarah whispered, her voice laced with curiosity. "Totally," Emily replied. "They're definitely closer. I saw Mrs. Jennings' office door closed pretty late last week. And guess who was the only one still here?" "No way," Sarah exclaimed, sounding surprised. "You think there's something going on between them?" "I don't know," Emily hedged, but her tone suggested otherwise. "But it's possible, right? Mrs. Jennings is still young and, stunning. And Jeff, well, he's got potential." My blood ran cold as their words reached my ears. My hands froze on the copy machine, my heart hammering against my ribs. I abruptly turned off the machine, grabbing my documents and making a hasty retreat, avoiding Sarah and Emily's path for the rest of the day. Their casual gossip was like a shot across the bow, a stark reminder that suspicion about Laura and me was brewing, spreading like wildfire through the office. That afternoon, Laura texted me to come to her office, again on my personal cell. When I entered, she was standing by the window, her usual composed demeanor replaced by a look of deep concern. "Have you heard anything?" she asked, cutting straight to the chase, her voice low and serious. Heard what? I feigned ignorance, trying to maintain a facade of calm. The office gossip? Jeff, Laura turned to face me, her blue eyes sharp and direct. Do you know people are talking about us? I hesitated, then nodded slowly. I overheard something. Do you realize how dangerous this is? Laura's voice grew more urgent. If this gets out, both of us could be in serious trouble. I know, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. I'll be more careful. Careful isn't enough anymore. Laura shook her head, her expression grim. She walked closer, taking my hands, her eyes searching mine, filled with a mix of worry and urgency. We have to stop this, Jeff, right now. Laura's words hit me like a physical blow, leaving me stunned and breathless. Stop, what? I stammered, refusing to believe what I was hearing. Stop the relationship, Laura stated firmly, her voice leaving no room for argument. We can't continue like this. It's too risky, too dangerous. I won't risk my career, and I won't risk my career, and I won't let you get caught in the crossfire either. But I started to protest, to plead, but Laura cut me off, her voice rising with a new edge of steel. No buts, Jeff, she said, her tone cold and final. It has to end here. We go back to being boss and employee, nothing more. We forget everything that's happened between us. Tears welled up in my eyes, blurring my vision as Laura's words crashed over me. I couldn't believe it. Just last night, we were wrapped in each other's arms, exchanging passionate kisses and whispered promises. And now, she was ending it all, so abruptly, so ruthlessly. It felt like falling from heaven straight into hell, from the pinnacle of bliss to the abyss of despair. Laura, please reconsider, I begged, my voice cracking with emotion. I love you. I can't live without you. Don't be foolish, Jeff. Laura sharply pulled her hands away, her voice now icy and detached. This was a mistake, a moment of weakness for both of us. We need to forget it and get back to our normal lives. But I don't want to forget, I pleaded, my voice filled with anguish. I don't want to lose you. You will forget, Laura said, her voice indifferent. All wounds, and you'll find someone else, someone better, someone more suitable for you than me. No one can replace you, I said, my voice desperate. You're everything to me. Laura paused, a flicker of something unreadable crossing her face. She sighed, her gaze softening slightly. I'm sorry, Jeff, but this is my final decision. We can't continue this relationship. It ends here. With that, Laura turned and walked away, leaving me standing alone in her cold, impersonal office. I stood there, rooted to the spot, unable to process the finality of her words. I felt like I had just lost something incredibly precious, something I would never get back. Leaving Laura's office, I felt like my world was office, collapsing around me. Everything seemed bleak and meaningless. Work, which had once been a source of ambition and drive, now felt like a pointless chore. I had no motivation, no interest in anything. Every day at the office became a form of torture, a daily struggle to keep myself from breaking down. When I got home that evening, the apartment felt empty and cold, amplifying the emptiness in my heart. Sleep eluded me. Memories of our intimate nights together haunted my mind. Each of our intimate nights, recollection twisting the knife deeper, intensifying the pain and regret. I tossed and turned, trapped in a cycle of despair. In a moment of utter desperation, I decided to seek out Laura one last time, to beg her for a second chance. I knew it was a long shot, a fool's errand, but I couldn't bear the torment any longer. I drove to Laura's apartment building, parked across the street, and walked to the entrance. My heart pounding with a mixture of hope and dread, I rang her doorbell, the sound echoing in the silent lobby, and waited, my breath held captive in my chest. The door finally opened. Laura stood there, as breathtakingly beautiful as ever. But her face was etched with lines of fatigue and sadness. Eyes, usually so vibrant, were shadowed and heavy. "Jeff, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice cold and distant, devoid of any warmth. I thought I made myself clear. "Laura, please give me another chance," I pleaded, my voice choked with emotion. "I know I messed up, I hurt you, but I truly love you. I can't live without you." Laura remained silent for a long moment, then sighed deeply, looked at me, her gaze a complex blend of pity and resolve. "Jeff, you have to understand it's over. There are no second chances. We can't go back to the way things were." "But why?" I asked, my voice laced with anguish. "Why did you change so suddenly? Don't you love me anymore?" "Love?" Laura scoffed, a bitter, hollow laugh escaping her lips. "Do you even understand what love is, Jeff? Love isn't about stolen moments in the office or fleeting nights of passion. Love is trust, respect, and sacrifice. And we have none of that, but we can rebuild it," I insisted, clinging to the last shred of hope. "We can start over, build a relationship based on trust and respect." "No, Jeff, it's impossible." Laura shook her head firmly, her voice final. "We've gone too far, crossed lines we can't uncross. Our relationship is tainted by secrets and lies. There's no way for us to rebuild anything meaningful." "So, you really want to abandon me?" I asked, my voice trembling with despair. "Don't you feel any regret? Any pain?" Laura paused again, a deep sigh escaping her lips. She raised her eyes to meet mine, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of genuine pain in their depths. "Yes, Jeff, I do hurt. It pains me deeply to hurt you, to end this choice. This is the best for both of us. Best for both of us." I laughed bitterly. "You're lying. This is only what's best for you. You want to protect your career, your reputation. But what about me? Do you even consider my feelings?" "I'm sorry, Jeff," Laura said softly, her voice gentler now. "I'm truly sorry for hurting you. But I hope you'll understand and forgive me someday." "Forgive you," I repeated, my voice laced with bitterness. "How can I forgive you? You stole my heart, you wrecked my life, and now you want me to forgive you." "I don't expect you to forgive me right now," Laura said, her voice sincere. "But I hope someday you'll realize I did the right thing. And you'll find your own happiness, a real happiness, not a secret and dangerous affair like this." Those final words, Laura turned and walked back inside, closing the door firmly behind her, leaving me standing alone, frozen in despair on her doorstep. I knew then, with a crushing certainty, that this was truly the end. No more hope, no more hope, no more hope. Chances, nothing left but emptiness and regret. Our exposure risk had materialized, not from office gossip, but from Laura's own definitive decision, pushing our illicit affair over the precipice. In the days that followed Laura's definitive end to our affair, the office transformed into my personal purgatory. A suffocating tension hung heavy in the air, permeating every corner. I felt the probing eyes of my colleagues, their hushed whispers and knowing glances constantly surrounding me like invisible specters, haunting my every move. Laura, once my inspiration and driving force, now became a source of torment. Every chance encounter in the hallway, each forced interaction during meetings, sent a painful jolt through me, as if someone had physically punched me in the gut. She maintained her usual composed and professional facade, but her eyes, once warm and inviting, now held a chilling indifference, treating me as if I were a ghost, a stranger she had never met. Meetings, Laura acted as if I didn't exist. She no longer assigned me critical projects, never sought my input on any matter. I faded into the background, a mere shadow in the office, sidelined from all meaningful activities. My colleagues also began to distance themselves. Their once friendly demeanor replaced by an icy reserve. The casual greetings, the polite smiles, the office camaraderie all vanished, replaced by cold stares and curt responses. I could feel the invisible wall that erected around me, isolating me from the office community. The rumors had clearly circulated, and they had judged me, found me wanting. I became an outcast, ostracized within my own workplace. My job, once a source of passion and purpose, the career I had poured my heart and soul into, now seemed dull and pointless. Motivation evaporated. Interest in projects waned. Each day at the office became an exercise in self-inflicted torment, a daily battle to keep myself from crumbling under the weight of despair. Evenings offered no respite, only amplified solitude and despair. My empty, silent apartment mirrored the emptiness within my heart, amplifying the crushing loneliness. Sleep became a luxury I could no longer afford. The vivid memories of intimate nights with Laura, once cherished treasures, now morphed into haunting specters, tormenting my mind, deepening my pain and regret. I sought solace in the numbing embrace of alcohol and cigarettes, hoping to drown out the pain, but they offered only fleeting, false comfort, ultimately intensifying the ache, making the hollowness deeper and more persistent. I knew, logically, that I needed to move on, to forget Laura, to bury this ill-fated relationship, if I ever hoped to function normally again, both professionally and personally. But how could I simply erase a woman I had loved with every fiber of my being? How could I obliterate the sweet, passionate memories we had created together? One particularly bleak evening, consumed by desperation, I made a rash decision. I would seek out Laura one last time, beg her for a second chance, a sliver of hope amidst the wreckage. I knew it was futile, a fool's errand, but I was drowning in despair, clinging to any straw of possibility. I drove to Laura's apartment building, parked across the street, and walked with trembling steps towards the entrance. I pressed the doorbell, the sound echoing in the hushed lobby, my heart pounding in my chest as I waited, breath held hostage. The door finally swung open. Laura stood there, framed in the doorway, still breathtakingly beautiful. An ethereal vision even in my tormented state. But her face, though still elegant, was etched with lines of weariness and sorrow. Her eyes, usually so vibrant and sharp, were now dimmed, shadowed with pain. "Jeff, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice cold, devoid of any warmth, echoing the chill that had settled between us. I thought I made myself perfectly clear. "Laura, please, just give me one more chance," I pleaded, my voice cracking, thick with unshed tears. "I know I messed up. I hurt you terribly, but I swear I truly love you. I can't imagine my life without you." Laura listened in silence for a long moment, her expression unchanging, almost carved from stone. Then she sighed, a deep, weary exhalation that seemed to carry the weight of the world. She finally looked at me, her eyes holding a complex mix of pity and unwavering resolve. "Jeff, you have to understand. It's really over. There are no second chances. We can never go back to what we were." "But why?" I pressed, my voice breaking with anguish. "Why did you change so drastically? Don't you feel anything for me anymore? Did our love mean nothing to you?" "Love?" Laura repeated the word, a hollow, mirthless sound escaping her lips, a bitter parody of joy. "Do you even grasp the meaning of love, Jeff? Love isn't just about stolen moments in the office or fleeting nights of passion. Love is built on trust, respect, and sacrifice. And what did we have? We had none of those things. Just a dangerous game built on lies and secrecy. But we can rebuild," I insisted, grasping at straws, desperate to salvage something, anything. From the wreckage, we can start over, create something real, based on trust and respect. "I know we can." "No, Jeff, it's impossible." Laura shook her head firmly, her voice leaving no room for negotiation. "We've crossed the line, Jeff. a point of no return in our relationship. Whatever it was is irrevocably tainted, poisoned by secrets and deceit. There's no way for us to build anything lasting on such rotten foundation. So, you really want to throw me away like garbage? I asked, my voice trembling with despair, the raw pain threatening to overwhelm me. Don't you feel any regret? Any remorse? Any sadness at all about what we're losing? Laura fell silent again, her gaze fixed on some distant point beyond me. Then, she raised her eyes to meet mine, and for the first time since our painful breakup, I saw a flicker of genuine sorrow in their depths, a brief crack in her carefully constructed armor. Yes, Jeff, I do feel regret. I feel pain. It hurts me deeply to hurt you, to end this like this. But, she emphasized, her voice regaining its firmness, I have no other choice. This is truly the best, the only path forward for both of us. Best for both of us, I echoed, a hollow, bitter laugh escaping my lips. You're lying to yourself and to me. This is only what's best for you, Laura. You want to protect your precious career, your impeccable reputation, your carefully constructed image. But what about me? Do you even consider what I'm going through? What this is doing to me? I am sorry, Jeff, Laura said, her voice softer, laced with a weary sadness. I'm truly sorry for all the pain I've caused you, but I desperately hope that someday you will understand. You will see that I did what I had to do, what was ultimately right, and that you will eventually find your own happiness. A genuine happiness, not built on a foundation of secrets and danger like this. With those final, devastating words, Laura turned her back to me, retreating into the fog sanctuary of her apartment, and closed the heavy door with a soft, definitive click, leaving me alone, standing numb and broken on her doorstep. I knew, with absolute, soul-crushing certainty, that this was truly, irrevocably, the end. There was no more hope to cling to, no more chances to beg for, nothing left but the cold, hard reality of loss. The aftermath of our illicit affair had crashed down upon me, brutal and unforgiving, far more devastating than anything my anxieties had conjured. Time crawled by, each day a leaden weight dragging me further into despair. Yet, despite the agonizing slowness, my pain showed no signs of waning. The office remained my personal purgatory, a daily reminder of everything I had lost. But I had no other choice. Quitting wasn't an option. I had to endure, to keep working. Even as my heart felt shattered and the world around me seemed drained of color and meaning, Laura maintained her icy distance, her professional demeanor, a flawless shield against any hint of our past intimacy. In the office, we existed in separate orbits. She no longer met my gaze, no longer spoke to me unless strictly necessary for work, as if I were a ghost haunting the periphery of her world. Her calculated indifference was a constant, agonizing sting, sharper than any outburst could have been. I knew she was deliberately erasing me from her present, trying to bury our shared past, but I was trapped in its relentless echo. Her image, her voice, the memory of her touch, they haunted me, a constant, unwelcome presence in my thoughts. I threw myself into work with a frantic energy, hoping to find oblivion in the endless tasks and deadlines, obsessively neglecting meals, sleep, and any semblance of a personal life. But the harder I tried to bury myself in my work, the emptier and more exhausted I became. My career, once a source of pride and ambition, now felt hollow, devoid of purpose. Work was no longer a passion, but a burden, a joyless responsibility I was forced to carry. My colleagues, too, remained distant, maintaining their cautious, almost wary attitude towards me. The open hostility of gossip had subsided. Perhaps they sensed the finality of our breakup, or perhaps office dramas simply moved on to fresh scandals. But the subtle ostracization persisted, Their gazes still held a mixture of curiosity and judgment, making me feel perpetually scrutinized, branded with an unspoken shame. I existed in a self-imposed isolation, emotionally walled off, with no friends, no confidants, no one to share the crushing weight in my heart. I was acutely aware that I had orchestrated this isolating reality myself, that my choices had led me down this path of pain and despair. Yet, even in the depths of my regret, I found no room for remorse for loving Laura, despite the immense pain she had inflicted. My feelings for her remained stubbornly, painfully intact. Then, one afternoon, as I was toiling late in my desolate office, the landline phone shrilled, cutting through the heavy silence. I picked up the receiver, and Laura's voice, instantly recognizable, resonant and deep, flowed through the line, sending a shockwave through my system, making my heart leap in my chest. "Jeff, could you come to my office for a moment?" Her tone was calm, professional, the voice of my boss, but even through the telephone line, I detected a subtle shift, a tremor of warmth, a hint of invitation that sent shivers down my spine. A jolt of adrenaline mixed with trepidation shot through me. Why was Laura calling me to her office now, after weeks of glacial silence? Had she changed her mind? Was she offering a second chance? A fragile thread of hope to pull me from the abyss? Or was this a cruel game? A way to prolong my agony? To twist the knife deeper into my already wounded heart? I swallowed hard, trying to regain a semblance of composure, and managed to answer, "Yes, of course, I'll be right there." My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of anticipation and dread as I pushed back from my desk and walked out of my cubicle, heading towards Laura's office once more. Each step felt heavy, laden with the weight of unspoken expectations. Yet, despite the fear, despite the rational voice in my head screaming warnings, I also felt an irresistible pull, an almost magnetic force drawing me forward, towards Laura, towards the dangerous allure of temptation. Reaching Laura's office, I found the door slightly ajar, a sliver of light spilling into the dimly lit hallway. I knocked softly, perfunctory tap, then gently pushed the door open and stepped inside, crossing a threshold back into a world I thought I had left behind. Laura was seated behind her expansive desk, but today her attire was different. She wasn't wearing one of her usual power suits, but a softer, more fluid outfit, a cashmere sweater in a creamy ivory color, paired with a flowing silk skirt, the fabric catching the light and draping gracefully around her. The soft desk lamp cast a warm, intimate glow around her, softening the sharp angles of the office, creating a surprisingly cozy and private space. The effect was disarming, deliberately seductive. "Jeff," Laura said, her voice softer, warmer than I had heard it in weeks, a carefully modulated tone that sent a confusing mix of signals. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time since our breakup, I saw not ice, but a flicker of something akin to longing. "Please sit down." She gestured towards the chair in front of her desk, her movement fluid, graceful, almost feline. I walked over and sat down, the familiar leather chair feeling strangely foreign after weeks of enforced distance. I tried to maintain a professional posture, to project an air of cool composure, but my eyes betrayed me, drawn to Laura like a moth to a flame. I noticed she was wearing makeup, subtly but expertly applied, enhancing her natural beauty. Her lips were fuller, glossier than I remembered. Her blue eyes seemed larger, more luminous, framed by darker, more defined lashes. Her perfume, a scent I had come to associate with intimacy and forbidden desire, hung in the air, wrapping around me, clouding my senses, making it harder to think straight. "I called you here today to discuss a matter of business," Laura began, her voice adopting a more formal, almost rehearsed tone. We have a significant project on the horizon, and I want you to take the lead. I blinked, momentarily thrown off balance by a sudden shift to professionalism. The unexpected focus on work. I had braced myself for an emotional confrontation, another painful rejection, perhaps even a humiliating dressing down for my unprofessional behavior. But Laura was talking about a project, a serious one. Could this be a cruel game, a subtle form of psychological torture? Or could it be something else entirely? Was she truly offering a second chance, veiled in the guise of a professional opportunity? A project, I echoed, my voice betraying my confusion, my uncertainty. Yes, Laura confirmed, her voice regaining some of its usual authoritative edge, though still softened with a hint of something warmer. The Phoenix Corporation merger. It's a major undertaking, incredibly important for the firm, and I believe you're the right person to spearhead it. I stared at her, momentarily speechless, struggling to process the weight of her words. The Phoenix Corporation merger. It was a massive deal, a career-defining opportunity, the kind of project junior associates like me could only dream of handling, at least not this early in their careers. If I successfully managed this merger, it would be a monumental leap forward, a guaranteed path to promotion, recognition, and a significant boost to my career trajectory. And Laura, the woman who had just weeks ago ended our affair with such finality, was now placing this golden opportunity directly in my lap. Laura, Mrs. Jennings. I stammered, tripping over my words, completely thrown off balance. Are you serious? You really want me to lead this project? The question hung in the air, thick with disbelief. I have complete faith in your abilities, Jeff, Laura stated firmly, her gaze unwavering, locking onto mine with an intensity that was both unsettling and strangely thrilling. Intelligent, resourceful, and remarkably dedicated. I know you won't disappoint me. Her words, seemingly professional on the surface, felt like more than just a professional endorsement. They were laced with a deeper, more personal meaning, a hidden message I couldn't quite decipher. The way she looked at me, the lingering warmth in her voice, the subtle emphasis on disappoint me, it all hinted at something more. A veiled invitation, a dangerous temptation, masked as a career opportunity. I will do my best, I managed to reply, my voice still shaky, uncertain if I was dreaming or awake. I know you will, Laura responded, a faint, enigmatic smile playing on her lips, a smile that conveyed both confidence and something undeniably seductive. And I'll be here every step of the way to support you throughout this project. Thank you, Laura, I said, my voice sincere, a mix of gratitude and trepidation churning within me. I won't let you down. I believe you, Laura repeated, her gaze holding mine for a beat longer than necessary. The air between us suddenly thick with unspoken tension. Then she stood up, her movements fluid and graceful, walking towards me, closing the already minimal distance between us. She stopped directly in front of me, her body close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from her, smell the intoxicating blend of her perfume and warm skin. Her eyes lifted to mine, the blue depths now swirling with a complex mix of emotions, desire and calculation, longing, and something harder to name. Jeff, she murmured my name, her voice dropping to a near whisper, her breath warm on my face, her lips just a tantalizing breath away from mine. You know, I still think about you. Even after everything, Laura's words struck me like a physical blow, igniting a wildfire in my chest, consuming any lingering vestiges of reason and self-control. All the carefully constructed walls I had erected around my heart crumbled, dissolving under the heat of her gaze. the seductive promise in her voice. I could no longer resist the magnetic pull she exerted, the overwhelming temptation she represented. My resolve shattered. Without conscious thought, hesitation, I reached out, my hands finding her waist, pulling her closer, drawing her body flush against mine, eliminating any remaining space, merging us into a single, trembling entity. Laura. I whispered her name back, my voice thick with her name back, longing, choked with a resurgence of buried emotions. Then, driven by an overwhelming urge, I closed the final, impossible inch between us and kissed her, a kiss fueled by desperation, desire, and a reckless disregard for consequences. That was both an admission of defeat and a desperate plea for salvation, a kiss that erased the recent weeks of cold separation, plunging us both back into the dangerous, intoxicating current of our secret affair. The return of temptation was secret affair, complete, overwhelming, irresistible, and I knew with a chilling certainty that I was once again caught in a perilous web, a seductive trap from which I might never escape. Laura's renewed temptation crashed over me, pulling me back into a whirlpool of desire that I thought I had escaped. The Phoenix Corporation merger project became an invisible cord binding Laura and me together once more, intertwining our professional lives with clandestine encounters after office hours. We plunged back into stolen moments of sweetness and sin, passionate kisses exchanged in the hushed office after dark, fervent nights of intimacy in Laura's luxurious apartment. But this time, the sweetness was laced with the bitter taste of anxiety. I knew we were playing with fire, and this time, the flames felt higher, hotter, threatening to consume everything. Each day at the office was a tightrope walk over an abyss of fear and tension. The constant worry of exposure, the dread of exposure, the dread of professional ruin, the specter of Laura's reputation tarnished. These anxieties became my constant companions, poisoning the brief moments of illicit joy. I knew this precarious dance couldn't continue indefinitely. A final choice loomed. Necessary reckoning before everything spiraled completely out of control. One evening, during a secret rendezvous at a luxurious hotel, after the tempest of passion had subsided, Laura and I lay entwined in bed, silently watching the city lights twinkle through the panoramic window. A heavy silence settled between us, thick with unspoken truths and looming decision. "Laura," I murmured, breaking the quiet, my voice trembling slightly. "We can't keep doing this." For a long moment, then sighed, a soft exhale that seemed to carry the weight of her own internal struggle. She turned to face me, her eyes mirroring the weariness in my own heart. "What is it, Jeff?" she asked, her voice low and heavy with resignation. "We have to end this," I stated, the words feeling like shards of glass tearing their way out of my throat, yet firm with a newfound resolve. "This relationship, it's too dangerous, too damaging. I can't risk losing my career, and I can't bear the thought of you being hurt either." Laura was silent again, her gaze fixed on my face, searching for something, perhaps confirmation of what she already knew. Finally, she nodded. A finally, slow, almost imperceptible movement of her head. "I know," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I've been thinking the same thing." "So, you agree?" I asked, a fragile hope flickering in my chest, mixed with a deep sense of sorrow. "I don't see any other way out," Laura replied, her voice laced with sadness and finality. "We can't keep living like this, constantly looking over our shoulders, paralyzed by fear. It has to end, Jeff." But, I love you," I confessed, the words torn from my soul, a desperate plea against the inevitable. "I don't want to lose you." Laura reached out, her hand gently cupping my cheek, a gesture both tender and mournful, a bittersweet caress that spoke volumes of unspoken emotions. "I love you too, Jeff," she whispered back, her voice thick with unshed tears, a heartbreaking echo of my own pain. "But love isn't always enough. Sometimes Sometimes we have to sacrifice love to protect what's more important. More important? I questioned, a bitter edge creeping into my voice. What could possibly be more important than our love? Laura, there are things. Jeff? Yes, there are, Laura insisted, her voice gaining strength, hardening with a painful resolve. Our careers, our reputations, our futures, all of those are at stake, more precious than a secret, fragile thing like this. I fell silent, the weight of her words pressing down on me, suffocating any remaining hope. I knew, deep down, she was right. Our affair, however passionate and intoxicating, was a house of cards built on a foundation of deceit and risk. It had no future, only the potential for mutual destruction. But my heart, stubbornly, foolishly, refused to relinquish the dream of a life with her. What do we do? I asked, my voice flat, devoid of emotion, resigned to the inevitable. Do we just forget everything that happened, erase it all as if it were just a bad dream? Laura paused, a long, drawn-out silence, then sighed again, the sound heavy with sorrow. She finally lifted her gaze to meet mine, her blue eyes glistening with unshed tears, reflecting the city lights like fractured diamonds. Up, Jeff, she stated, her voice laced with finality, each word a nail hammered into the coffin of our relationship. We have to end this affair completely and never see each other again. Not like this. Never see each other again. I repeated, the words echoing in my mind like a death knell, each syllable a fresh wave of pain. What does that even mean? We won't work together anymore. No more contact at all. Exactly, Laura affirmed, her voice barely above a whisper, thick with unshed tears. I'll arrange for you to be transferred to another department, another position at another branch of the company. We won't work together, and we won't work together. Communicate outside of strictly professional necessity. And even that should be minimal. It's the only way, Jeff. The only way we can truly move on, forget each other, and rebuild our lives separately. Laura's words landed like a death sentence, shattering any lingering illusions of a future together, extinguishing the last embers of hope in my soul. I felt like I was losing something irreplaceable, a part of myself that would forever be entwined with her. But I knew, with a chilling certainty, that she was right. This was the only viable option, the only way to salvage what remained of our lives, even if it meant sacrificing the most intense, most passionate connection I had ever known. Our secret affair had ever known, reached its tragic, inevitable conclusion, and I was left with no choice but to accept the devastating truth. I understand, I said, my voice choked, tears finally spilling over and tracing hot paths down my cheeks. I'll do whatever you think is best. Laura reached out, pulling me close, burying her face in my shoulder, her body trembling with silent sobs. I held her tightly, feeling her quiet devastation mirroring my own in that raw, heart-wrenching moment. We were no longer boss and employee, no longer illicit lovers, just two souls lost in a labyrinth of desire and regret, clinging to the final, agonizing moments of a love that was never meant to be. That night, we held each other close, whispering final words of love and farewell, exchanging last, desperate kisses that tasted of salt and sorrow, our bodies entwined for the last time in a bittersweet farewell. We parted in tears and heartache, but also with a shared understanding, a silent acknowledgement that this agonizing separation was the only path to mutual survival. We knew, with a heavy certainty, that this was the only right choice, even if it was the most painful one imaginable. The next morning, I walked into the office, the air thick with a palpable sense of finality. I packed my personal belongings, a meager collection of desk trinkets and framed photos, each item a silent witness to the now doomed chapter of my life. I transferred to a new department, a new role, at a different branch of the company. as Laura had arranged, a swift, clean break from the world we had secretly inhabited together. I walked away from the familiar office, leaving behind the ghosts of Laura, the echo of our forbidden affair, lingering scent of her perfume, the bittersweet memories of stolen moments, the wreckage of passion and regret. I knew my life would never be quite the same. The illicit affair with Laura had carved an indelible scar on my soul, a wound that time might eventually heal, but would never fully erase. But I also knew, with a weary resignation, that I had to move forward, to navigate the wreckage of my shattered heart, to rebuild a life from the ashes of this forbidden love. My final choice was acceptance, a reluctant surrender to a painful truth. I had to step onto the path laid out before me, however lonely and uncertain, and walk forward into an unknown future, hoping, against all odds, to eventually find peace, perhaps, someday. A different kind of happiness, a happiness untainted by secrets and danger, a love less passionate, perhaps, but more real, more enduring, more attainable.